Call to order. The Committee on State and Local Government will come to order. It is Thursday, March 13, 2025. The time is 12:35. Senator Hoffman, you have your first on our list, Senate File 96, and you may begin.
Thank you, Chair Zhang and members. I'm here to present for the next hour and a half Senate File 96. All the professional societies that have members who are licensed and are certified by the Minnesota Board of Architecture, Engineer, Land Surveying, Landscape Architect, Geoscience, and Interior Design are in favor of this legislation that is in front of you today. The broad-based support is for the following reasons, and I'll name three of them. They're allowing for the retroactive enforcement against individuals within 2 years of their license expiration for rule statute violations while licensed. It prevents rules and statute violators from simply playing out the clock and letting their Minnesota license expire rather than face the discipline, and provides proper time for the board to prepare, pursue, and resolve cases to fulfill its mandate of the public protection. The Department of Labor and Commerce have granted this similar authority, and it was granted in 2019 to the Board of Accountancy with the support of the CPA Professional Society. So this is really aligning things up. It simplifies a path to licensure by removing the age restriction and addresses the vague language in the statute that establishes substantial equivalency standard that is for the applicants for the license of Minnesota that are already licensed in another state. Imagine that. And it reduces the cost of the temporary license for qualified members of the military to $0. Improving diversity and inclusion by broadening the opportunity on representation of the board itself is also a requirement to serve. The professions that are regulated and licensed by the board were established to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. We're committed to the responsible and equitable performance of the duties, and we strongly committed to expanding that profession. So I'm asking members that you please get this bill the due diligence that it deserves. And with me, I have Paul Brandt. And when you think about, you got to get somebody who can dot the I's and cross the T's and all that other stuff. And this is one that Paul Brandt is a retired soil scientist from Brooklyn Park. So if you want to engage in getting in the weeds on stuff on water, you can do that. And also, just for questions, if there's anybody that wants to go deep, Philip Raines is here, who is coming in as a land surveyor of the board there. So as well with that. You should have handouts, Mr. Chair, the Society of Professional Engineers support letter, and then there's also the American Institute of Architects letter of support. So with that, Mr. Chair, Mr. Paul Brandt.
Mr. Brandt, please state your name for the record, and you may begin.
My name is Paul Brandt, professional soil scientist. I am a member of the Board of Architecture, Engineering, Land Surveying, etc., if you don't mind my abbreviating it. Our concern, Minnesota Association of Professional Soil Scientists and the American Institute of Professional Geologists both support this bill because we've had a number of members of the licensed community that have come in from out of state, gotten a license, done bad work, and then just left. The board has no way of informing. If we don't have this legislation, the board has no way of informing other states of the bad practices that have occurred in this state with multi-state licenses. Also, we've had people who, getting near the end of their term or just deciding to change, have done less than admirable practice, and we need to have some way of bringing them to task and, the future, making sure that they don't get relicensed, or if they are, they're relicensed. Thank you, Senator Carlson, for being here. I know you were a co-sponsor on this last year. So we would really hope that you could see fit to move this forward, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brandt. Any other? Please state your name for the record, and you may proceed.
Sure. My name is Phil Raines. I'm representing the Minnesota Society of Professional Surveyors, and I'll keep this real brief. This bill just modernizes the statutes for the board and helps us with military people coming in, helps us hold people accountable. And one of my favorite state reps from another state says, Skip Saviano, it's a good bill. That's all there is to it.
Thank you. Members, any questions or comments to the bill or any additional testifiers out there? Seeing none, just want a reminder that we do have quorum since the start of the committee hearing. Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Hoffman, for bringing this forward. As a licensed engineer and member of MSPE, I encourage a yes vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, Senate File 96 is laid over for possible inclusion. And
I just was wondering, Mr. Chair, thank you very much, Chair and members, but I was, maybe you could have just sent it to the floor. That would have been.
and there is also Senate File 1418.
Oh, I do.
Direct support for professionals council establishment. Senator Hoffman,
Yep.
also your bill.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. This is Senator Abler and I. This bill needs to go back to the committee, the Human Services Committee. And so, any of you are welcome to, join our committee because we actually have really good discussions and get things done. So, but this bill, I would appreciate if it goes back. There's an A3 amendment that cleans up the language that has been suggested by council. So if somebody could move the A3 amendment, I'd appreciate that.
Senator Carlson moves the A3 amendment, and the amendment should be in the packet here. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The amendment is adopted. Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. And we've been in the discussion about the issue that's in front of us regarding caregivers. There are 53,000 job openings for caregivers in Minnesota, and it still is that after all these years of work. And what we really wanted is we engaged with the Centers for Independent Living and other folks in the Minnesota Direct Care and Workforce, and they had a group get together. The Metropolitan Center for Independent Living was among those initial members of this work group, and we asked them to come up as a technical writer and write what they saw was a way that we could deal with the severe direct care shortage crisis. And so the input that was put in front of us really lays out this tiered approach to it, and we have the ability to get folks that are involved with the industry and agencies to bring us solutions to the Human Services Committee, which is what is needed. And so with that, members, if you could just pass this bill and send it back to my committee so we can deal with it, we would be more than happy. Isn't that correct, Senator Mayquaid?
Thank you, Senator Hoffman. Members, any questions or comments? Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Hoffman, we've got how many boards and councils do we have, Senator Hoffman, and how many have we established in the last 2 years?
Senator Hoffman.
Yeah,
or
and
maybe
Mr. Chair.
Council.
Yeah, thank you. Senator Draz, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know this addresses a unique need we had that we've been talking about for the last few years regarding the direct care workforce shortage, and that what will end up as the results of all these folks that we know are the people involved in the process. They'll be coming to our committee saying, here are the things that we need to get done. So I don't know the answer. I don't know the boards. I don't count the boards, Steve, but I just care about human services stuff. So that's a good question. I don't know, maybe somebody could give you that answer. So
Senator
that's cool.
Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Hoffman. Well, I do count boards sometimes, Senator Hoffman. I've got a list of them that were invented by this legislature in the last 2 years. The Active Transportation Advisory Committee, the Advisory Council on Interstate Adult Offender Supervision State Advisory Council for the Interstate Compact for Juveniles, the Advisory Council on Traffic Safety, the Advisory Council on Water Supply Systems and Wastewater Treatment Facilities, the Advisory Task Force on Gambling Disorder, the African American Health State Advisory Council, the Agricultural Fertilizer Research and Education Council, the Behavior Analysis Advisory Council, the Cannabis Advisory Council, the Cannabis Expungement Board, the Child Fatality and Near Fatality Review, the Clean Transportation Fuel Standards.
Senator Drazkowski, not to interrupt you or anything, you can continue if you would like, but I think your point has been made. Do you have the final list of how many boards are there?
I don't, Mr. Chair, but I think the people of Minnesota want to know what this legislature is doing to them. The Clemency Review Commission, the Community Resource Center Advisory Council, the Community Solutions Advisory Council, the Community Supervision Advisory Committee, the Council on Child Protection and Maltreatment Prevention, the Council on LGBTQIA2S+ Minnesotans, the Critical Materials Recovery Advisory Task Force, the Distribution of Endowment Fund Earnings Task Force, the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Council, the Equitable Healthcare Task Force, the Executive Board of Direct Care and Treatment, the Explore Minnesota for Business Council, the Gagagi, it's a name I can't pronounce, Reward Account for Information on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives Advisory Group, the Governor's Committee on Minnesota America 250, the Governor's Committee on the Safety, Health, and Well-Being of Agriculture and Food Processing Workers 2024, the Governor's Community Council on Inclusion and Equity, the Governor's Council on the Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday, the Health Equity Advisory and Leadership HEAL Council, the Legislative Task Force on Guardianship, the Mentally Ill and Dangerous Civil Commitment Reform Task Force, the Minnesota Advisory Council on Infrastructure, the Minnesota Agricultural Water Quality Certification Advisory Committee, the Minnesota Attorney General's Task Force on Worker Misclassification, the Minnesota Climate Innovation Finance Authority, the Minnesota Nursing Home Workforce Standards Board, the Minnesota Secure Choice Retirement Program, the Producer Responsibility Advisory Board, the Prescription Drug Affordability Advisory Council, the Prescription Drug Affordability Board, the Psychedelic Medicine Task Force, the State Board on Appellate Counsel and Training, the State Board on Civil Legal Aid, the Supervised Release Board, the Task Force on Holistic and Effective Responses to Illicit Drug Use, the Task Force on Pregnancy, Health, and Substance Use Disorders, the Transportation Impact Assessment Technical Advisory Committee.
Senator
And, Mr.
Zhang,
Chair,
if
the
I,
last
one.
Mr. Chair, the last council or advisory board in the last 2 years, number 49, the Workforce Group on Simplifying Supportive Housing Resources. So, Mr. Chair, members, those are only 49 of the councils and boards and commissions that have been put into law by this legislature in the last 2 years. There are hundreds of these types of councils, commissions, and advisory boards throughout state government. And Senator Hoffman, the intention of your bill, and I do have a lot of respect for what you do, and the motives behind what you work are perfect. But we do this over and over again. We develop new councils, largely appointing people from government to these councils, which is probably not where we should be going. We should probably be actually appointing people who are experts in the public to councils to begin with, and not more and more government. But we are growing government at massive rates, and it's no wonder that we are facing actually a $6 billion deficit in the out biennium, when this legislature's predisposition is to simply grow government and build things and incur the people, the taxpayers of Minnesota, with the liabilities that come along. Not only, Mr. Chair and members, the direct liabilities of funding these councils, and we many times, I haven't studied this one yet, but there's probably a per diem in here for everybody, so we're probably paying them to go to the meetings. which we used to not do very often here, but now everyone seems to be paid. But all of these expenses, and that not to mention, Senator Hoffman, not to mention that many times not only is the outcome of these councils, boards, and commissions, their answers is building more and more and more and more government that they bring back to the legislature, but the actions within them cost a lot of money, and that more and more and more and more government, and the items that we actually entertain from these councils and boards and commissions cost more and more and more of the people's money. I know why we're in a $6 billion deficit, Mr. Chair, because this legislature in the last 2 years has spent like drunken sailors, formed a bunch of boards and commissions that have brought back more ideas for us to spend more and more and more, and we've actually entertained it. So with that, Mr. Chair, I have, I don't know, Senator Barr's got an amendment too. Maybe he would like to do his first. You might be tired of listening to me. I've got an amendment before we're done, but I think Senator Barr's got an amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Zhang, could Senator Hoffman reply?
Yeah, we had Senator Hoffman next on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No offense, but this is purely established 1998, 2018. This is an extension to the ad hoc committee. This is not a new committee. This is a committee that my committee, which is made up of bipartisan people, need in order to address the workforce shortage. Please do not play any games with this. It's a human services bill. Merely pass this and send it back to my committee. I get what you're talking about, Mr. Drazkowski, but that has nothing to do with my bill. I would respectfully ask this committee, do not add stuff to this bill, because if you do that, it takes away the intent of both the Supreme Court decision in 1998, what we did as a committee, which Senator Abler was in charge of that committee in 2018, and it is an extension of what we need to do on that committee to do the work that is absolutely going to save lives in Minnesota. So I hear what he's saying, but that has nothing to do with this bill. So if you would please respectfully pass this bill back to my committee, but do not play the games that are going to be added by adding stuff to this bill. Respectfully, I'm asking that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Hoffman. Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, I don't want to take away from what Senator Hoffman just said, but I do really want to make sure that we're differentiating between task forces, councils, advisory boards, many of which are time-bound and have specific end dates and goals. I myself sit on the foster care advisory task force. We've had a ton of legislation come out from that because these give us the opportunity to bring together people with lived experiences who sit in between multi-complex areas of law, state, federal, city, county, and are often dealing with the most vulnerable people in our state. And we need places to bring them together to offer expertise, compile research, look at statute, and then talk through system solutions together. Human services is one of the most complex pieces of law that we touch anywhere in this entire legislature. And it deals with seniors, people with disabilities, people with complex needs, people in direct care and treatment, people with substance use disorder. And again, it involves all those levels of government. And if we don't have places to bring folks together with lived experiences like disability service providers, providers of home care, not in assisted living facilities, nursing facilities, mental health providers, children mental health providers, we cannot solve problems. We genuinely cannot do that in a committee if we don't have people who are living in these systems and working in these systems and understand how they're impacting people. And so I will echo Senator Hoffman's ask that this committee not try to play in something that you genuinely do not get. There are parents and providers and people who show up every day to our committee because every single thing we do impacts their ability to live independently or live at all. It is not a game. It is not political posturing. It is just not, yes, so I'm going to echo Senator Hoffman's ask to not play that game with this bill. We can do it on many other ones. This is not the one. I wouldn't recommend it, and I would ask that we just ask our questions and then move along.
Next is Senator Johnson Stewart.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a brief response to Senator Drazkowski. I have direct experience with one of the boards you mentioned, which is the Advisory Council on Water Supply Systems and Wastewater Treatment. Respectfully, I'd say we need government representation here because the government is, in fact, required to make sure that our drinking and wastewater systems are operating and safe. This board is made up of water and wastewater operators. I know nothing about how to operate a water or wastewater treatment plant, as I'm guessing neither do any of my contemporaries here. And so for the PCA to get advising on those kinds of practical issues, I would say is 100% entirely appropriate. And there is no per diem offered on this board. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Senator Johnson Stewart. Senator Barr?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to offer the A1, and I will, if it's all right with the chair, can I speak to it while it's being distributed?
Yes, yes,
If
to
it's
your
not in package.
amendment, Senator Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Hoffman, I totally agree with this is something that should not be played with, which is why, in the spirit of this amendment. It's not a game. I get exactly what you're after, and you want to get more people into this service. You want to find out how apprenticeships, at least that's the way I understand this, how you can get more people attracted to come into this. So what this amendment actually does is on page 2, when you're creating your board, it removes all of the commissioners and puts people who actually have boots on the ground and are actually involved in this, people that are actually involved in the day-to-day operations of what you're trying to get at are the members of this board, as opposed to a third of them being commissioners of different agencies. So no, I am not trying to play games. I'm trying to get to the core of what you really want and make it as clean as possible. So that's the spirit of the amendment.
Thank you, Senator Barr. Any other comments on the amendment? Senator Hoffman, any words on the amendment here?
I do. I would oppose the amendment based upon this committee was actually set up because of the 1998 Supreme Court decision that was adjudicated in Minnesota to create the Olmstead Cabinet. These members are part of that old Olmstead Cabinet ad hoc group. This is the work that we're doing with the workforce shortage. So it's not, that's just been around since Minnesota had to apply to that. So I hear what you're saying, Cal, but please just, no, this needs to stay clean, right? Abler set this up. I'm expanding this on. So please just either remove your, I would respectfully ask you to remove your amendment or go ahead and vote on it. And if that's the case, I did not want this to become a game. The only reason I brought this here was to continue our work. It had to go through here because of the fact it was an established board, which was based upon, look it up, 1998 Supreme Court decision, which Minnesota, then it was a federal judge who said that. Senator Abler was the chair of the committee and said, this is what we need to do in order to adhere to the Supreme Court decision, plus what we're doing because we need to address workforce shortage. Our committee is still having that conversation to this day. So, no, if it was something else, Cal, I would say yes, but in this case, no, it's got a history on that. So I appreciate you.
Senator Grazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank a spirited discussion, Senator Hoffman. I appreciate that. But you know what? Our government has gotten so big and so powerful, and the people of Minnesota are feeling confounded in their ability to live their own lives. And so we think that the answer to everything is to build a bigger government or form another commission or add 6 commissioners to a commission. Why are we adding 6 agencies to one of these supposedly citizens commission? If the government doesn't know the answer right now to these things, why are we adding them to a commission to figure it out? That's what I want to know. Our government is failing us. They're not able to provide these answers. I've been here for 18 years, and these agencies continue to grow. We build them bigger and we add more stuff to them, and we think if we add another arm to them, more mechanization to the agency, that it'll do this, and we get assurances this, my favorite term, members, this will ensure. This will ensure that these people will be protected. This will ensure that these kids learn. And we do that over and over and over and over in our bills. Send it back to me. Year after year after year after year. And guess what? It doesn't work. And we come forward with another task force full of branches of government. I wonder if they get per diems in this bill, Mr. Chair. Maybe Senator Hoffman can tell us, are their designees getting per diems to show up to these meetings?
Senator Hoffman.
You know, Mr. Chair, that's a conversation. I don't know if they get, probably not, because this was established. The answer to that is no, they do not. They do not, because it was established by a federal judge for Minnesota's Olmstead provision. That was a Supreme Court decision. Minnesota's response to that. This is a continuation of the work that we've already been doing. Did I let you know that it was established? This one ad hoc committee was 2018. So All I asked you guys to simply do was allow this to come back to my committee, and then that's where it originated from, 2018. And that's where I want it to be back. And I did not have any intent. I'm actually sitting here feeling apologetic. I'm supposed to be meeting with the Nigerian ambassador right now because I thought, oh, this would be nice. We can send it back to my committee. But instead, where I feel like I'm in the other body right now, Senator Zhang, you served in the other body. It's like we're talking about something not germane to the thing. No, germaneness isn't part of this committee, but I'm just asking you to do me as a favor, not as a favor, to do our committee the right justice and just send it back so Utke and Abler and Rasmussen and Hoffman and May Quaid can have this conversation and move this on to the next ability. That's it. That's all we're asking. Real simple.
Senator McQuaid.
Well, Mr. Chair,
Senator Drazkowski, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, thank you, Senator Hoffman, but we've got a bill before us that creates a council with 18 members. 6 of them are members of the executive branch. They're commissioners. That's what we're talking about. This isn't just buffing something up and sending it back down the road. This is an expansion of a council and inserting a whole bunch of government. And frankly, I think members of the public are growing fatigued with the idea that we just keep building the government bigger and adding more stuff to it and thinking we're going to be assured of something, assured some kids are going to be safe from being in the streets, or that old people are no longer going to die, or all kinds of things that we continue to think that government is going to change. And here we build another big cog of government and make 50 on the list instead of 49. I support the Barr amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. I will go to the author's amendment, the author of the amendment, Senator Barr. Any comments? With that, we will take a vote, on the
Roll call, Mr. Chair.
Barr amendment, and a roll call has been called. The A1 amendment, there will be a roll call on the A1 amendment to staff.
Chair Zhang?
No.
Vice Chair Gustafson?
No.
Vice Chair McQuaid?
No.
Senator Lang? Senator Barr?
Aye.
Senator Carlson? No. Senator Swatzinski?
Nope.
Senator Drazkowski?
Aye.
Senator Eichhorn? Aye. Senator Fateh? Senator Johnson-Stewart?
No.
Senator Corian?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, there are 6 noes and 5 ayes.
There being only 5 ayes and 6 noes, the amendment does not pass. Senator Drazkowski, to your amendment.
Mr. Chair, I have the A2 amendment.
Senator Drazkowski has the A2 amendment. Do you have copies for us?
I think they're passing it out, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
as it's being passed, could you go to your amendment?
Yes. We have seen happening federally as the Department of Government Efficiency digs into, really it's appearing to be almost all of the agencies of the federal government. They are unsealing all of the fraud and corruption and waste that we have in our federal government. And we know Minnesota government certainly is no stranger to fraud and waste. We've had $611 million of fraud that we've that's only what we've identified in the last 6 years, Mr. Chair. Certainly the Health and Human Services area is one of the areas. I do remember a legislative audit from about 10 years ago that audited the Medicaid program. There were, at that point, identified $271 million of waste and fraud that were happening there. Dead people were getting Medicaid. Illegal aliens were getting Medicaid. People who were not legal to get Medicaid were getting the Medicaid benefits. I remember when we extrapolated that, Mr. Chair, it extrapolated to over $1 billion because that original study only studied a segment of the Medicaid people over, I believe, 5 months. If you extrapolate that $271 million, at the time, it was over $1 billion of a year or per year in waste and fraud within the Medicaid program. So my amendment would add to this commission a member appointed by the administrator of the United States DOJ service, and I'm going to bring this amendment to many of the bills in the future, and this is just the first of them, because I think we need to find ways to uncover the fraud and waste and corruption in our government, and certainly the Health and Human Services area is one that needs it. And if we're going to add 18 members to this commission, let's at least have one that's going to be looking for the waste, fraud, and abuse within the agencies under the purview of this particular commission. Urge your support. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator McQuaid.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I'm going to urge a no vote on this absolutely ridiculous amendment. The corruption that is happening in our federal government is happening in front of our eyes. Trump has fired all of the OIGs. People can funnel money directly into his pocket through a meme coin. The richest man in the world who is unelected and is not overseen by Congress, which has completely abdicated their duty to oversee the money they appropriated to the federal government for things like special education and farmers and healthcare and cancer research, gone. So why would we have a 19-year-old guy named Big Balls be appointed by the administrator, the richest man in the world, unelected billionaire, to a committee or a council that is trying to bring together a designee of the Commissioner of Human Services, the designee of the Commissioner of Health, DEED, higher ed, labor and industry, and education, and then healthcare agencies who are working together to try to find a solution for the dearth of PCAs that help people with disabilities get out of bed in the morning so they can live. This is ridiculous, what is happening on this committee today. I genuinely cannot believe we are talking about DOJ, a not real department of the federal government who is literally committing fraud and corruption right before our eyes. You know, there was a car sale on the front lawn of the White House yesterday for the richest man in the world, while people have their cancer research cut off and walk around with clinical trial medical devices in their bodies because they cut off the funding for the doctors who provide the clinical trials. So I cannot imagine anything more ridiculous. And I keep saying that word because the other word I want to use, I don't think you can use it in polite public. Vote no and let us move on to a different bill, because I cannot tell you how offensive it is to play games with people with disabilities and seniors' lives like this. We have an incredible shortage of people who can provide this direct service support, and there are a group of people who want to get together and figure out a solution. And all of a sudden we're doing this. This is unacceptable. So let's just vote no and move on.
Members, Senator Hoffman, any comments?
I got
Before I
lots
go
of
back to the
comments,
other-
but I'm just going to tell you, follow McQuaid on this one. So.
Senator Drazkowski, to your amendment, any final comments before we take a vote?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, President Trump didn't fire all the OIGs in the federal government. He only fired the ones that weren't performing and doing their job. And we've got a bunch of government in the state of Minnesota that needs to have a look at the spending, the following of the law or not, and what we're actually doing. They're doing this at the federal level and exposing things to a level of corruption and waste that somebody who is very skeptical of that, never expected it to be that big. And does anybody believe that we don't have that here in Minnesota with all the fraud that we've had within this federal government, from CCAP to Medicaid to unemployment to a variety of programs? We need to bring some accountability back. If we're going to have hundreds and hundreds of these boards, let's have somebody that's looking out for the taxpayers of this state. Let's put this level of accountability and responsibility on this, once again, the 50th board or commission since any of us have been paying attention here the last 2 years. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
With that, we will take a vote on the A2 amendment. All those in favor? A roll call being requested. There will be a roll call on the A2 amendment to Senate staff.
We'll get it registered in the journal too.
Chair Zhang,
No.
Vice Chair Gustafson,
No.
Vice Chair McQuaid,
No.
Senator Lang, Senator Barr,
Aye.
Senator Carlson. No. Senator Swedzinski.
Nope.
Senator Drazkowski.
Aye.
Senator Eichhorn.
Aye.
Senator Fateh. Senator Johnson Stewart.
No.
Senator Coran. Mr. Chair, there are 5 ayes and 6 noes.
There being only 5 ayes, the amendment is not adopted.
Mr. Chair, can I ask that that's published in the journal, please?
The vote will be, it cannot, not after the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Senator, any further comments on Senator Hoffman's bill? Senator Coran.
Thank you, Senator Hoffman. And you know, we share a love for that, the same passion for this, for our disability service and the Department of Human Services. And so I think with the reformation or the refocus on it, we know, right? I think everybody knows what the issues have been forever. But I think the real focus has to be not just on the pay. We know that, but I think the layering of the regulatory element that, from a business operations perspective, but also the rules of engagement, the code of conduct, and all of the things from the staff who serve in them. Because this gets us to try and grow them back from the loss of over 20,000, but we still haven't been able to really keep any of them on a consistent manner to allow for that growth. The turnover's still been high. So, and we talked about a lot. So, would love to participate. To me, this is an area that we need to move in and start a pilot on how we do that entire transformation of that delivery mechanism. They're all the right people at the table. And so with that, there's nowhere out, right? There's a lot of other places, but if we're going to pilot it somewhere, it's about when people matter, and this is what we're doing here. And so I think that, I don't think we'll learn much new besides what are we going to do differently from an organization, from DHS and their attachment to slow the impeding rules, or the growing rules, and have them live by them. And you and I have talked about how do we change that workforce training so everybody wins. And our counties depend on it, and everybody that works in that environment depends on it. And I think we can have a lot of fun at the same time. So I think as a focus, you've got all the categories are there, and they're new, but I think we need to call it out, literally call it out, and let's work together to add that as an expanded definition, not here, but at your next committee.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Hoffman.
if I can, thank you. Senator Cran, that's the segue to this. There's actually 2 parts to this, and you're hitting at the same thing we've been talking about is that tiered approach, and there was 2 pilots. And it's Anoka, I think Senator Makeway, do we do Anoka and Dakota where we're doing all this stuff? Because to address the thing, you and I have been banging our heads against the wall for the past couple of years talking about that and the layered efficiency. I'd be lovely if you'd join our committee too. I mean, I got Glenn over there. You might as well come over and do the same thing. No, seriously. I mean, our committee does not operate. I've never seen human services be politicized until today. And that really depresses me. It absolutely saddens me and it angers me. And it's the conversation that Senator Coran just had with me that is exactly what's going to get us to the exact end result of what we should be doing. That's a systemic policy conversation, and that's what I love about human services. But I'm telling you guys, I simply wanted you to just take what we have been doing, and Senator Cran, Mr. Chair, there is that second part to this which does that tiered piece. I think you might even be a co-author on that one, but it addresses that piece, and I just wanted us to simply put this back to our committee so we can keep having our conversation. So I appreciate you, Mr. Chair, and I wish somebody would make a motion to pass this thing back.
Thank you, Senator Hoffman. Seeing no further discussion, Senator Gustafson moves that Senate File 1418 as amended be recommended to pass and re-referred to the Human Services Committee. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The Senate File 1418 has been re-referred and will head its way towards the Human as amended, will be moved, referred to the Human Services Committee. Thank you, Senator Hoffman.
Mr. Chair, members, thank you, and I look forward to getting Coran at the next, I want you to come and by you guys.
Next up, we have Senator Dibble's bill, Senate File 1730. Thank you, Senator Dibble. Welcome to the State and Local Government Committee. To your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I appreciate the opportunity to present Senate File 1730. Thank you also to my co-author, Senator Klein. Mr. Chair and members, you'll see the only change that's being proposed is at the bottom of the first page of the bill, lines 21 and 22, adding the Office of Cannabis Management to the definition of what an agency is considered. The Office of Cannabis Management did not exist when 1065 was passed in 2021. And as a new state office, this change will align, we'll call it OCM for short, with other similar state agencies and offices. The purpose is to provide clear expectations and best practices, to have collaborative relationship with tribal governments and support OCM in the implementation of the cannabis industry across the state. Because, of course, strong relationships between the office and tribal nations will enhance public health and safety, ensure a well-regulated medical and adult use cannabis market, and encourage economic development. So that, in short, is the proposal and its rationale. And we have Eric Taubel here, who's the director of the Office of Cannabis Management, OCM, to share more thoughts with you about why this is a great bill that everyone should support. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Welcome to State and Local Government Committee. Please state your name for the record, and you may proceed.
Thank you. My name is Eric Taubel. I'm the interim director of the Office of Cannabis Management. I don't have much to add. This bill just aligns OCM with other similar state agencies and offices in terms of the requirements under 1065 to engage in consultation with tribal nations. We think it'll be helpful for the cannabis industry as we begin to roll out the industry.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anybody else that would like to testify on this bill? Seeing no other testifiers, Mr. Tetrault?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Welcome to State and Local Government Committee. Please state your name for the record, and you may begin.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity today to testify on SF 1730. My name is Sean Tatro, and I represent Kind Bud Supply Company. I oppose this bill because it would make the already opaque compacting process even less transparent to legislative scrutiny, reducing the legislature's oversight on how Minnesota's cannabis market is structured and operates. The cannabis compacts between the state and tribal governments are already being negotiated in secret and have only recently become public through a leak. The leaked compact grants such overwhelming advantages to tribal operators that it raises serious concerns about whether future negotiations can be fair and demands more and not less transparency and legislative oversight. Unlike every other cannabis business in Minnesota, tribal governments are not required to apply for a license or face a lottery. Tribes are also not subject to the same operational limitations imposed on all other license holders. Tribes appear to be having their cake and eating it too, while everyone else is being starved. Minnesota's cannabis industry was sold to the public as a craft market meant to benefit those harmed by cannabis prohibition. The details of these tribal compacts are not consistent with that vision and clearly do not benefit those harmed by prohibition. The total sum of advantages being offered to tribal nations has only one logical outcome: monopolistic control. To be clear, I do not oppose tribal participation in the cannabis market, even off of tribal land, but I oppose regulatory framework that builds in advantages for any group at the expense of small, locally owned businesses. If special carve-outs are also made for large multi-state medical companies, there will be no space left for small businesses in this industry. These advantages for tribal and/or medical operators compound the OCM's cancellation of the pre-approval lottery last fall. Small businesses will not have a chance. Actions speak louder than words. Stand up for your constituents, the people who put their faith in you, making their voices heard. These sudden and drastic shifts in the structure of the Minnesota cannabis industry only hurt the people you were sworn to represent. Has the Minnesota government abandoned the idea of fairness completely? Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions or comments on the bill? Senator Coran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Dibble, I know it looks like a simple change, and I thought it was at first. What powers come with this change, adding the OCM as it relates to tribal relations?
Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Cran. As I understand, this allows the Office of Cannabis Management to sit at a table that's been established, the name of which I don't recall, MIAC, is that right? The MIAC stands for something, at which state agencies and the tribal nations sit to have conversations. Mr. Tauble can probably explain a little further.
Senator Coran, would you like to testify or to add on?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Tetro.
Thank you, Chair. Senator, MIAC is the Minnesota Indian Affairs Council, and being a part of 1065 would allow the Office of Cannabis Management to participate in events and conversations with MIAC. It would also, I think, help align us with the state enterprise more broadly in terms of the vast array of offices and agencies that are already a part of 1065. And it would sort of help us to recognize the unique legal relationship between the state of Minnesota and tribal governments. We would implement a consultation policy that would have the effect of actually being more transparent in terms of how it is that we interact with tribal nations, because we would be subject to 1065. There would be annual consultations with each of the 11 tribal governments whose territory is shared with Minnesota. We already have a tribal liaison, but that work would continue. And finally, we would continue to send members of our staff to the tribal state relations training as part of this.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Coran.
Thank you, Mr. Tauble. And so with that, that gives you the power to negotiate the remaining, or to continue to negotiate the cannabis compact that you are currently engaged in, which hasn't been transparent. Thank God it was leaked by somebody. So it gives you full power to negotiate that entire tribal compact?
Mr. Tetro.
Chair, Senator. So 1065 is separate and distinct from the requirements of the compacting statute. The compacting statute is found at, I think it's section, I always get it wrong, but it's 3.2998 or 3.9228, one of the two. That, as well as a similar provision at .994.224, authorizes or actually compels the governor to engage in compact negotiations with any of the 11 tribal nations that wish to engage in compact discussions about jurisdictional issues related to cannabis.
Thank you, Mr. Tauble.
Senator Coran.
Mr. Chair. And so with that, when you say it's going to increase and provide us great transparency, transparency to who? To Minnesota citizens, the tribes? What does that mean?
Mr. Chair, Senator Cran, thank you for the question. 1065, it sets an annual consultation requirement, and so to the extent that people are concerned that discussions are occurring at times when they're unaware or they don't know how many they're occurring, this sets a baseline for the interaction between the Office of Cannabis Management as well as the tribal councils of the 11 tribes within Minnesota.
Senator Coran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so, Mr. Tauble, so the current statute's 3.99228, and I forget what the other one was.
Yeah.
Neither of them have any transparency requirements in them?
Director Tauble.
Chair, Senator Cran, thank you. It is 9228, and subdivision 5 requires that the governor shall post any compact entered into under this section on a publicly accessible website.
Thank you,
Senator Coran.
and Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I think we all understand the concerns, right? So the legalization or the entire cannabis bill was laid out. There's no, I think I wasn't a big fan of it, but it wanted to work as it was stated. I actually do. It hasn't, and I'm not sure this brings us any closer to doing that. We won't negotiate, or there's lots of details. This is probably not the time and the place to do that. So with your desire to enhance transparency, I'd like to move, I've got two amendments, Mr. Chair, so I'd like to move the A1 amendment to Senate File 1730.
Senator Cram moves the A1 amendment. Staff has the amendment here. Could you go over your amendment as it's being passed out? Senator Cram?
Yes. Yep. Thanks, Mr. Chair. So what this one does is pretty simple. Actually enhances transparency. Your stated desire is given that OMC and the governor and the tribes have already entered into an agreement with no transparency. What this does is simple common sense transparency measure for all those conversations. And I think as a recommendation, talk about how it impacts the current legislation and the desire to issue those licenses. But at first, it adds a Speaker of the House to the tribal negotiations. Second, it requires the compacts to be published online for 1 month prior to them to being able to be signed by the tribe and the governor and the Speaker of the House. And then lastly, it requires the compact agreement sunset after 8 years and allows whoever the governor and Speaker of the House at the time to re-enter tribal state cannabis compact negotiations on cannabis 2 years prior to that sunset date. And so it greatly enhances transparency, which I thought was a great stated goal. So our goals are aligned. And I'd request a roll call, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Roll call being requested. I'll go to the members. Any questions or comments on the amendment? And I'll go to the author. Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would recommend a no vote on the A1. This is the first time seeing of it. Didn't know there were going to be any amendments to a fairly simple bill that allows the OCM simply to sit at a table that already exists, where they can have conversations in tandem with other state agencies and the 11 tribal nations in our state. This opens up a discussion that is unrelated to the compacting that's required under the adult use laws that we passed a couple of years ago. Fairly significant change probably, and maybe worthwhile, but probably should be done in conversation with stakeholders, with the chief author, with the Office of Cannabis Management and others. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Dibble. Senator Cran, any final comments before we go to the vote?
No, Mr. Chair. We can go.
All right, to staff for the roll call.
Chair Zhang?
No.
Vice Chair Gustafson?
No.
Vice Chair McQuaid?
No.
Senator Lang? Senator Barr?
Aye.
Senator Carlson?
No.
Senator Swedzinski?
Nope.
Senator Jaskowski?
Aye.
Senator Eichhorn?
Aye.
Senator Fateh? Senator Johnson Stewart?
No.
Senator Coran?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, there are 5 ayes and 6 noes.
There being 5 ayes and 6 noes, the amendment does not pass. Senator Coran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I thought we were going to get close on that one. So I'd like to move the A2 amendment to Senate File 1730.
Senator Coran moves the A2 amendment. Senator Coran, your amendment is being passed out. Would you like to go over your amendment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And this one's fairly simple. And what it does is really one thing. It doesn't allow for any compacting agreement to cede state sovereignty when any of the tribes operate cannabis businesses off of the reservation or tribal land.
Thank you, Senator Coran.
I would request a roll call.
Roll call being requested. Any members, questions or comments on the amendment? Senator Dibble?
Give me one moment,
One
Mr.
moment.
Chair. Thank you. Well, Mr. Chair,
Senator Dibble.
It may be a simple amendment. There's a lot to read and a lot to synthesize in the proposal. And so for the reasons I stated earlier, on the A1 amendment, I would recommend a no vote. I think to the extent that there are good ideas in here, they would benefit from a conversation with myself as the chief author, the Office of Cannabis Management, those who were a party to creating the requirements that the governor enter into or be available for entering into compact conversations. So I would recommend a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dibble. Senator Coran, your amendment?
Mr. Chair, we can go to vote.
Staff will take the roll call.
Senator Zhang?
No.
Vice Chair Gustafson?
No.
Vice Chair McQuaid?
No.
Senator Lang? Senator Barr?
Aye.
Senator Carlson?
No.
Senator Swatinsky?
Nope.
Senator Drazkowski?
Aye.
Senator Icorn? Senator Fateh? Senator Johnson Stewart?
No.
Senator Corian?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, there are 5 ayes and 6 noes.
There being 5 ayes and 6 noes, the amendment is not adopted. Senator Curran. No, any further comments?
Mr. Chair, no further comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments on the bill? Seeing no further comments, Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Appreciate the opportunity to present Senate File 1730. I would request that when the motion be made, that it be recommended to be referred to the Committee on Commerce, where a number of other agency bills are, and so the goal is to put all of those bills together into one bill.
Thank you, Senator Dibble. Seeing no further discussion, Senator May-Quade moves that Senate File 1730 be recommended to pass and re-referred to the Commerce Committee. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senate File 1730 is recommended to pass and re-referred to Commerce. Thank you, Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Next up, we have Senate File 1891. Senator Lang. Committee Lead Lang. Senator Lang, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Earlier in session, we had a discussion with the OLA, and the OLA had done an audit of the lottery, and the lottery had come to me and asked if I would carry the bill to be the fix-it bill. So there are some I believe, Mr. Chair, Ms. James does have an amendment that was provided by staff for some clarification. If maybe we want to get that moved first.
All right, thank you. Senator Curran moves the A2 amendment. Members, there should be an A2 amendment in your packet on this bill. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The amendment is adopted. Senator Lang, to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And like I said, I believe after reading through the bill and the amendment that we just adopted, that this is the fix-it bill that would not only allow the lottery as a whole to proceed into the future, but also answer some of the questions that were brought up in the audit. So with that, Mr. Chair, it's a fairly simple fix-it bill, and I think it's going to get us where we need to be. So, and I do have Mr. Prock with us here today.
Mr. Prock, would you please like to state your name for the record and provide your testimony?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Adam Prock. I serve as the Executive Director of the Minnesota Lottery. I appreciate the opportunity today to speak briefly on Senate File 1891. First and foremost, I want to express my sincere gratitude to Senator Lang for your leadership on this bill, and we're grateful for your support. The Minnesota Lottery strongly supports Senate File 1891. This bill provides much-needed clarity regarding the scope of annual background checks for individuals in retail operations that oversee Minnesota Lottery ticket sales. Specifically, Senate File 1891 ensures that officers, directors, and owners who, with direct oversight, referred to as responsible lottery officials, are required to authorize and undergo an expanded nationwide FBI background check on an annual basis. In simple terms, this bill ensures that background checks focus specifically on the directors, officers, and owners of the businesses who are directly involved in overseeing lottery operations, while excluding individuals who have no connection to the lottery. Many of them do not live nor work in Minnesota. At the same time, it enhances the thoroughness of our background checks for those directors and officials who are responsible for managing lottery products. The clarity provided by Senate File 1891 will also help the agency address issues identified by the Office of the Legislative Auditor. We appreciate the work of the auditor and her team and are grateful for their efforts in improving our processes. We also appreciate this committee supporting helping us promptly address those findings. By strengthening the background check process for Senate File 1891, not only enhances the integrity of Minnesota lottery retailers, it also reduces administrative burdens for our valued business partners. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Prock. And members, any questions or comments on the bill? Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Prock. Thank you, Senator Lang. Mr. Prock, this looks better. I'm liking the direction you're going. Can you tell us the two measures here, or the two background checks, if you will, are a financial and a crime one? Can you tell us, given the limitations in your, or not limitations, but direction your agency's given by the bill, which includes now that we're going to make it clear that it's anybody in the United States, and that's what we were looking for. Can you tell us how the agency is going to do that now? How are you going to do those background checks, and how do you do the check on whether or not they owe $500 more in delinquent taxes?
Mr. Prock.
Thank you,
Director Prock.
Mr. Chair, Senator Drazkowski. We do the checks on with Department of Revenue. Additionally, background checks will be done through BCA. It's a nationwide FBI background check. They're required to submit their materials, and then we run that through BCA to do a nationwide FBI background check. Very stringent.
So, Mr. Chair. So thank you, Mr. Prock. So, Mr. Prock, you'll be doing both of them as you were before you made the change here in the last couple of years that we were so critical of in the audit. Is that right?
That is correct, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Senator McQueen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Lang, I'm reading the bill correctly on line 2.9. That whole clause 1 is, they cannot contract with an organization, firm, partnership, or corporation that has, and then it's, people under the age of 18 who have delinquent taxes, who've been convicted of in the previous 5 years of a felony or gross misdemeanor crime. Blah, blah. Am I reading that section correctly?
Thank you, Senator McQuaid. Senator Lang or Mr. Prock?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator McQuaid. I believe, unless I don't have the amendment in front of me, I think there was just some definition changes within that, but I believe this section of law stayed the same in the amendment, or the proposed law, excuse me. Yes, that is, I think that is, from what I've understood from lottery officials and staff, that is a standard way to approach it. So. Thank you.
Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Lang, I wasn't trying to do a gotcha. I was just making sure I was reading the right thing correctly, because I wanted to do an oral amendment, but I want to do it in the right place. Mr. Chair, I would like to offer an oral amendment to the, I don't know where it would go in this little clause 1 on 2.9 to 2.12, but essentially anyone who has been pardoned for sedition or insurrection in the United States, in any jurisdiction in the United States.
Thank you, Senator McQuaid. Is that an oral amendment?
Mm-hmm.
Could you give a moment for staff to provide us with the text?
And Mr. Chair,
Senator Lang.
You want to, just so I'm understanding what you're trying to do, is you want to exclude people that have been pardoned of a crime to be excluded from the process of working for the lottery?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Lang, really specific crimes, sedition or insurrection.
Senator Lang.
Mr.
Any
Chair,
comments to the amendment before we read it out?
I would probably caution the body on excluding people that have been pardoned of a crime, whether it's specific or not, to be excluded from working for a state agency.
Senator McQuaid, any comments on your amendment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Lang. So, I mean, there were 17 people, Minnesotans, I should be really specific, who were pardoned after participating in sedition and insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th. And while there are many different kinds of things that people go through, whether it's expungement, through, boards, all that kind of stuff, but those crimes were horrific. Those pardonings were more horrific and entirely unwarranted. Many of those people pled guilty or were convicted by juries. And so when we're talking about the kinds of corruption and fraud that can happen, folks who are willing to, do an insurrection against our country, participate in sedition, those are not people we should have around our tax dollars. And so I would like to include them from being excluded from working with our tax dollars in this way.
Thank you, Senator McQuaid. Maybe staff can read out the oral amendment for us.
Madam Chair and members, Senator McQuaid's proposal is on page 2, line 10, delete or. Page 2, line 12, after the semicolon, insert or, parentheses, small Roman numeral 4, close parentheses, pardoned for violation of federal crimes of sedition or insurrection, semicolon.
Thank you for that. Senator McQuaid, are you requesting a vote on this oral amendment?
Mr. Chair, yes, and a roll call, please, and print it in the journal.
I'm sorry. There has to be 3 hands for the oral amendment for the journal. Seeing there being 3 hands. Senator McQuaid, I understand the intent of your bill, but I would caution against it. As we had just seen one earlier, I would be a no vote on this, as I would like to see the work go through. But I understand the intent of what you're trying to achieve here. And with that, staff will take the roll.
Chair Zhang,
No.
Vice Chair Gustafson,
Aye.
Vice Chair McQuaid,
Aye.
Senator Lang,
No.
Senator Barr,
No.
Senator Carlson, Senator Swedzinski,
Aye.
Senator Drazkowski,
No.
Senator Eichhorn, Senator Fateh, Senator Johnson Stewart,
Yes.
Senator Corian. Okay, one sec here. Mr. Chair, there are 5 ayes and 6 noes.
There being 5 ayes and 6 noes, the amendment is not adopted. Senator Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an A1 amendment, and could I get the staff to distribute that, please? Because I do not have a
Barr, we
physical
do.
copy.
Yeah, Senator Barr, we have copies of your amendment here.
I don't have one.
To your amendment, Senator Barr.
So, Senator Lang and Mr. Chair, the amendment is 2.13 to 217, and it's clarifying a little bit of the language around who, how do I phrase this? The lottery director can't contract with a corporation, and it just clarifies the language. It's not an immediate family member, somebody who lives with the immediate family member, somebody who lives with the director or director's employee of other things. So it's just, if you've got a copy there, you can probably look real quick.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I apologize, you caught me off guard. I forgot we talked about this. It is just adding some commas and being very specific in the language. When we read through it, we had a little conflict on how we viewed it and how we read it. So I'd be okay with this and view it as a friendly.
Senator, members, any questions or comments on the amendment? Senator Barr?
I'm good, Mr. Chair.
All those in favor of the A1 amendment say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say no. The A1 amendment is adopted. Or Senator Barr's A1 amendment is adopted. Senator, any further questions or comments on the bill? Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate your time this afternoon, and this is a good governance bill. This is doing things the way we're supposed to be doing things, is when the OLA says, hey, there's a couple of problems, and the lottery says, yeah, we think we can work on those problems, and here's the bill to fix it, and thank you for the time. So,
Thank you, Senator Lang. Let's see here. We have, this is the last bill, and it will be laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you, Senator Lang.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
And with that, the committee is adjourned. Thank you, members.